Now let's look at a special case. How about nuts? Nuts are a little different, right? They're seeds, but they're edible seeds. They're typically not toxic. What's the strategy? You know, I don't know about you guys. I grew up believing, having been told, that squirrels were very forward-thinking animals, right? They were planning for the winter time, right? In the heat of the summer, they're thinking, you know, I better store some food for the winter, right? Now it's interesting because squirrels have a brain about the size of a pea. There should be relatively little processing power, okay? I kind of doubt they're thinking 6 months in advance. I doubt it. And that doubt was actually confirmed when I bought my first house, and in the backyard was a black walnut tree. And I moved my office to my house, and I had a window that faced the yard, and I watched all summer as the squirrels would bury nuts and dig them up. They were burying some, and they were digging up others. Well, what happened to waiting until December, January, right? They weren't doing that, okay? They weren't waiting. That's not what's going on. What were they doing? Why were they burying nuts? When nuts and seeds leave a plant, the plant protects them by coating them, covering them with enzyme inhibitors. Enzyme inhibitors which prevent them from sprouting, which prevent them from being enzymatically active. All right? Because if those enzymes were active, they would sprout. It might not be the right conditions. So this is what nature does. Now, let me give you an interesting example of how this makes a difference. When I was getting ready to sell that first house, I'd been there for 12 years. I'd renovated the kitchen in year maybe 2 or 3. And I found a package of flower seeds sitting in the back of a kitchen drawer that had been there for like 8 years. And if you've ever bought flower seeds, they usually have an expiration date. Usually it's like a year. You know, after a year, they're not guaranteeing anything's going to sprout. Okay? So I looked at this package of flower seeds. They'd expired a long time before. I've got nothing to lose. I took them outside, tore open the bag, sprinkled them in the garden, watered them, and guess what happened a week or 2 later? Flowers happened. Okay? And I'm thinking, that's amazing. These apparently dead, dried out little things that sat in a drawer for years still produced life. How's that possible? Because they were coated with enzyme inhibitors and they were enzymatically inactive. It's almost like they're in a state of suspended animation. Okay? It's, you know, they look like they're dead for all intents and purposes, but they're not. They just need to be revived. And how do you revive them? Now, let's back up for a second. What does these seeds need in order to sprout? What conditions they need? Anyone?
Water.
They need water. What else?
Sun.
They need sun. Initially, do they need sun? Initially, they need darkness, actually. They need to be in the ground. And warmth, right? They need warmth. Now, in the back of the kitchen drawer, they were warm, and they were dry, and, you know, and it was dark. And so what was missing was water. Took them outside, put them in the ground, and sprinkled them on the ground and watered them. And what happened was they sprouted. Because watering them is washing off the enzyme inhibitors so they become active again. All right? That's what's happening. So when the nuts leave the tree, now the squirrels might eat some of them right when they're mature on the tree, but if they don't, if they're already on the ground and they're collecting them, they're going to be enzymatically inactive. So what does the squirrel do? Squirrels don't have bowls where they can soak the nuts. So what do? They stick them in the ground, they wait for it to rain, and once it's rained and the seeds have germinated, I noticed I kind of doubt again with that little pea-sized brain, they're probably not remembering where they put them all. They weren't making little maps, shockingly enough, okay? They didn't put little flags over each one. What do? My guess is that they're actually sniffing the ones that have been, started to grow. They can smell that somehow once they've germinated. Now, do you think they find them all?
Probably
No,
not.
they just tear up your yard looking.
My guess is they don't find them all. And what that means is the ones they don't find, if we don't pull them out, I mean, if they were coming up in my yard, I was taking them out. But the ones that they don't find in nature are turning into trees. And that's the strategy. That's the whole point. Now think about this. The black walnut tree in my backyard employed squirrels and chipmunks. And it paid them. It
That's
paid them
genius.
with walnuts. Okay? Their job was to plant new trees. Okay? Now let's say, and I don't remember now the number, I think these trees make roughly 1,000 nuts a year per season. So let's say only 1% of those survived, didn't get eaten, or came up somehow. Only 1%. That's 10 trees. Okay, it's 10 trees. Let's say it takes, now trees, 5-6 years to begin producing? Something like that. So that may not be the right number, but let's just say, it's 6 years. So every year for 6 years, there's 10 new trees. And in year 6, those first 10 trees produce 10 more trees. And now in year 7, there's going to be 20 trees. Except that the second year's worth also, they start producing the next year. So there's going to be 30 trees. And by the time you get down the road, you got hundreds of trees producing every year. The odds are it's not 1%. It might only be 1, 2, maybe three trees come out of that year's batch. That species is going to be pretty successful if that's all it's doing. Okay? That's what's going on. That's the intention of nuts. Now, why does that make sense? Why is the tree investing so much energy in making nuts when most of them don't ever become new trees? Well, think of it this way. How much energy does it take to create sugar? A lot. All right? And these trees aren't making fruit. The mango tree is making the seed plus all that sugary stuff around it. The nut tree just makes the nut. That's it. The nut, which is the seed. Okay? And they found a way to, they make the seed edible, they make it as tasty as possible. And, in the case of the macadamia, there's some sugar in there, they're sweet. But they've probably got a smaller investment, perhaps, in each one than the fruiting tree does. All right?
The macadamia is working the same strategy.
Yeah, same strategy as all of them.
So if we eat these nuts, we supposed to also plant. So, because if not, we stop the strategy.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily your job to worry about the tree's strategy. The real point is that you don't have to feel guilty about eating these things because they were intended to be food. Hey, thanks for watching. If you're interested in more information about fasting in general, we've got a playlist there. If you're interested in fasting for specific conditions, you can check out that list. If you want to hear what people's experience was in their own words, we've got a group there.